Welcome, everybody. Welcome. I am Matt Bellace, and I'm going to be your speaker today for this program, but we've got some great students from Northern Valley Demorest joining us, and I'll just go around the circle here. Josephine on my left, Kaharu, Jacob, Rebecca, and Lily. We have some seniors, some juniors, and I'm so happy that they're going to be part of this virtual assembly. Me, I'm a psychologist and a stand-up comedian, which is an odd combination. I totally get that. One time a TV producer called me and he goes, "We need a psychologist who's funny and you appear to be the only one." I was like, "Oh, okay. Thank you." This has been a tough time for me, as you can imagine, as a person who used to travel the country a lot and speak at super spreader events. March 2020 was a shock to the system. I used to brag to my wife, like, in order for me to lose my business, they'd have to close every school in the country. March 12th of last year. Oh my God. My wife's like, "Remember what you said?" I'm like, "I totally do." Oh, brutal. What I noticed was the tremendous anxiety. Forget the fact that I'm a psychologist. Every morning for the first 2 weeks, I woke up with this chest tightness. And I'm like, is this corona or a panic attack? I'm not really sure. Oh, good. It's just panic. That's good. And I went like from this, jet setting speaker guy to mediocre homeschool dad in 48 hours. And I'm just sitting at the kitchen table. So difficult. It was miserable, honestly, and scary in so many ways. And I come from a long line of nervous people. I know this because when I was a little kid, if I ever snuck into my mom's room in the middle of the night, trying to wake her up, this is how my mom would wake up middle of the night. She'd be like, yeah, like a drowning victim. That was my mother, from sleep to wake in the middle of the night. And she'd scream at me like, "Why are you here? What are you doing here?" I'm like, I have to go potty. I think I just did in my pants. Whew. Yeah, my dad, definitely an anxious guy too, but he was a really negative person, my father. He's the kind of guy, he only gets excited about a conversation with you if something bad happens to you in the story you're telling. I noticed that happen. I was like, "Dad, I had a great presentation today." "Oh, but traffic sucked on the way home." "Really? That is great. Tell me more." So those are my parents, right? So here I am facing a real crisis. And if you're ever going to experience anxiety and negativity, it's during a real crisis. And they came out in me. And it was overwhelming and difficult. But what saved it, I think, were the friends, family, clients of mine who reached out to be supportive and be helpful. I definitely struggled with the kids being home. I don't know, did you guys like being home? Anybody want to share if you enjoyed remote school from your house? Anyone enjoy that? Some kids, about 20% of kids, like, yeah. You did, Josephine?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was, you still could kind of spend time with friends through more like your phone, but like less homework.
Very true. Yeah. Some kids did enjoy it. Like my son, who got chai tea delivered to his bedroom so he could watch Zoom gym class. Like, that's pretty sweet. Thank you, Uber Eats. I didn't know you delivered right to the bedroom like that. That was my son. My daughter, on the other hand, not a fan. And she's 8 years old when it hit, the pandemic hit. And, she just did not like school on the computer. She regressed, started sucking her thumb again, which was so strange because she's 8 and she could still say like these mean cutting things that 8-year-olds say, but then get away with it because she could suck her thumb. Like at one point, she's like, "Daddy, you're short." Like, wow, that's cutting. "You don't even want to be here, Daddy. You're just here because you lost your job." Ooh. That's my daughter, man. And then I got COVID. Through all this. And by the way, none of my family got it. I was around them for 5 days until I found out none of them got it. I think I'm a little disappointed in COVID. Seriously. But my daughter stood outside this door when she found out she was negative, and she's flexing on me like, "Yeah, I don't have it." Yeah, that's my daughter. That was my house. Every night there was something stressful that happened. But again, what saved it? Support. I could feel it when people would reach out to say, "How are you doing, man? What's going on? Can I help you in some way?" I could feel my anxiety get less. Things started to return to somewhat to normal. Let me show you what life used to look like. When I used to speak at schools, people would all wear the same shirt for some reason. Speaking to cults. No, I'm kidding. This is a conference I spoke at. Auditoriums that were packed. I miss those days. You miss that? I do. I totally miss those days. You'd roll up school, start telling jokes. People love it. They can't get enough. You're killing. I miss that. Yeah, I would start every presentation though with this chair demo. Bring up 8 students, have them arranged in the chairs in a certain way. Then I can start pulling the chairs out from underneath. Lots of fun. It's novel. Okay. And why is that important? Teenagers, some people assume they're apathetic, they don't care, but their brains are novelty seeking missiles. And as soon as you do something interesting and lean forward, it's like, whoa, what is this? So I've been doing this chair demo for many, many years, probably 2 decades now. And the coolest part is I get to sit on top at the end and talk about positive support. I noticed this, by the way, in real time at a presentation once in California. I was speaking at a juvenile detention center, about 200 incarcerated teenagers. And I'm setting up the chairs to begin. And a guard walks up to me and says, "What's up with this? The chairs." I'm like, "Oh, it's great. I'll bring them up. We'll sit down. They'll lean back. I'll pull the chairs out." He goes, "They can't do it." I'm like, "Well, of course they can do it." "No, they can't do it. They can't touch. It's against the rules here." I'm like, "Oh, how am I supposed to start my presentation?" "I don't know." And he grabs the mic and he just does this as an introduction. He's like, "We have a speaker. Give it up for Matt Bellace." Oh, got my name wrong. I took him out. I was so nervous at that point that the first thing I said to these kids was, "So thanks for being here," which is like the worst thing you can say to teenagers in prison, by the way. They hated me. 10 minutes straight, not one laugh, bombing horribly. And they asked for one volunteer to come up and guess some songs. And a young man named Eugene raised his hand. Turns out he's a singer-songwriter. He came up, and after he was done guessing, I said, "Hey, you want to sing one of your songs for us?" He takes the mic and delivers the most powerful song about his life, about his pain, about his struggles. Audience loved it. Standing ovation, which I'm sure was against the rules, but who cares, right? When he was done and sat back down, they looked at me like I was a new human being. I went from bombing to doing well, all because I had the support of the crowd. So support is crucial for us in so many different aspects of our lives. I didn't, by the way, invent the chair demo. That's an old Boy Scout routine that I learned from a buddy of mine named Rob Torres. Here's Rob. Rob used to be a clown for Big Apple Circus. Before that, though, he worked at Disney, and he did the chair thing as a warm-up act. And when he left Disney, I begged him, "Please, Rob, can I use the chair thing?" He goes, "Absolutely, Matt, just make it your own." That's a friend. That's a supporter. I noticed the second I started doing the chairs, my presentation went up a notch. For those 5 minutes, it got so much more interesting. And then it just, boom, it crashed because I wasn't very good at the time and I had nothing to follow. I couldn't follow myself. But I'm going to show you a clip of my buddy Rob, who passed away in 2018, tragically. He had a heart attack on a plane, shocked everyone. A healthy guy, so successful, so talented, but he used to do this bit as a lead clown, involved the box. And we'll show it to you, and then we're going to talk about it on the other side. No words here, just applause. Hopefully you can hear it. My buddy Rob Torres, he would come out in front of audiences of thousands in countries he didn't speak the language. they'd all applaud him because he's a lead clown, right? And he'd capture the applause in a box and work it like a master. When he passed away and I saw that clip, I thought, what does that box represent? To me, it represents the people in our lives who applaud us even on our worst day. So to our panelists here, who would like to share who's been like the box for you during the last 80 weeks? Yes, it's been 80 weeks since the pandemic hit. Not that I'm counting, but who's been like the box for you in your life? What do you think? Who wants to go first? Or we could just look at each other awkwardly. Jacob, go ahead.
You mean like someone like we love or like applauds for us or something?
Something like that. Yeah. Who's
Okay. My dog.
nice?
Not all the time because in quarantine my dog did poop on my school computer, but great comfort, good hugs until the biting. But
Wait, that
yeah.
raises the my dog ate my homework to a new level. He pooped
Yeah,
and now it's just
yeah.
doesn't turn on. I'm sorry, Jacob. So you're
It's okay. It was funny. I posted it. It was funny.
hopefully not the poop. Hopefully that part you just maybe posted it in words. But anyone else want to share who's been like the box for you during this time? Could be someone at school, a friend, family. Who'd like to go next? Josephine.
Yeah, like a couple close friends, just always there. So they definitely helped me get through quarantine.
Okay. Yeah. Now I know it's going to be tough to single out one friend. But you have one friend who's like a really talented listener, someone who's just makes you laugh, picks up your day, makes good eye contact, is always there for you. Is there someone like that?
Yeah.
Who's that person?
Do I name them by name?
Sure. If you're okay with that.
Oh, yeah. Russell's a really good friend.
Russell?
Yeah, Russell.
They said Ruffles. I was like, oh, wow, that's a unique name. Russell. Tell us a little bit about Russell.
Russell's our student council president. He's great. He's good at speaking. He's a good listener for sure. Yeah, and he's hilarious. So brightens up your day.
All right. All wonderful things. Now, if I was there with you in person, I would actually have a box, something like this right here. And I would have worked the box, captured your applause, and then handed it to you, Josephine, and asked you these very questions. And you would talk about Russell. And then at the end, I would give you the box and say, okay, I want you to give this to Russell and thank Russell for being this positive supporter of yours during this time. And of course, the reaction from Russell when you do carry this out would probably be like, why are you giving me this box? If you didn't see the presentation, you'd be like, what's this all about? And what I say is, I know it's just a box, but when you explain that the speaker is sort of asking you to give this to the person in your life who's so supportive, it really is an opportunity. It's not just a box, it's a chance to be grateful, to be thankful for Russell. And it's just a moment. That's all it is. And we rarely get moments to thank the people that we're closest to in our lives, right? We can just get about our busy day and forget to take a moment to do that. And that's what I think the box can do. And I wish I could all hand you a box right now and say, go do this to the people in your life who've been supportive of you. But maybe this presentation will give you that opportunity when you just talk about it in front of your loved ones. If you have that gifted listener, you might tell them, because it's going to make them feel great. And that's what's gotten us through this experience. In fact, if I show you some slides around social support, some of the science behind it, I think you'll see some interesting trends. So as you go from low to medium to high levels of support, look what goes down. Symptoms of depression, anxiety, even thoughts of self-injury and suicide significantly drop as you go up in social support. And I witnessed it myself. I mean, a number of people reaching out to me, I started thinking less about myself, got out of my own head, my outlook improved. During the pandemic, who has struggled the most with negative emotions? Turns out younger people. You'd assume older people, right? Because they're more at risk dying of the virus. No, it's younger people who've had more to lose, missing out on school and teams and performances and just big moments, right? Those moments that you've been with friends and just interactions you've had, fewer of those. Teenagers are natural born risk takers, all right? And your friends play a huge role in your behavior. I'm going to show you a study here that that demonstrated it. But we know that during the pandemic, vaping rates plummeted, partly because that social influence of vaping was not there. And that's a good thing that it plummeted for sure. And we started seeing it creep back as people get back to school. But there's also another side of risk taking, which can be positive. And in this study, it was a simulated driving machine. They put teens, young adults, and adults in the machine. And when teenagers were alone, their risk taking looked very similar to someone in their mid 20s. But as soon as their friends are present, you see that line that shoots up there? That's teenagers when their friends are there, risk taking in the game goes way up. I showed this to a high school kid once. He's like, man, adults are lame, huh? Look at that. I was like, yeah, you have no idea. My biggest risk, am I going to eat bread tonight? I think I will. We can actually measure blood flow in parts of your brain associated with risk taking. Here's two of them, the ventral striatum and orbital frontal cortex. It's on the test. You might want to write this down. But you see blood flow go up, but only for teenagers and only when their friends are present. They actually even did it where people were in the machine and there was nobody in there with them. They were just told they're being watched by their same aged peers, and risk taking went up. Now, what real life scenario does that mimic? Let me guess. Social media, yeah. People posting things, maybe taking risks on there because they think others are watching them. Well, I'll tell you what, social support can save a life, but there's some techniques we can do to reduce our stress and our anxiety and make us healthier. And one of those things I'd like to share with you in a second. But first, let me say that when I was in high school, my mom made me go away to a leadership conference going into 10th grade. The reason she made me go away, first of all, is she didn't want me to be like my brother, who I love, who's doing well in his life now. But back then, he was a big partier. The friends that he leaned on for support, let's just say they supported some negative choices. Big drinkers, partiers, drug users back in the day. My brother's friends were, I can remember my parents yelling all the time saying, like, you're 16, you shouldn't drink. And this is my brother. Dad, relax. I read there's protein in beer. Like that was his attitude about things. Once I caught my brother with weed. I'm like, I don't think you should be doing that. It's not good for you. He goes, weed is like salad. I don't know why his voice sounds like Rick from Rick and Morty. Like, I smoke weed. I do. Morty, I smoke weed. Like that was just his voice, right? And he was getting in all kinds of trouble. And mom comes up to me when I'm going to the 10th grade. She's like, Matt, we don't want you to be like your brother. We're going to send you away to a leadership conference that teaches teens how to be drug free. I'm like, no, you're not. What? Send him, not me. She made me go because my mom was the vice principal at my high school. Anybody in the panel here have a parent work at your school ever? You experienced that? Nobody? You're lucky. My mom was in charge of disciplining my friends at my high school. I would get stopped in the hallway and hear, your mother gave me detention. What do you say to this guy? I'm not afraid of you. I live with her. Much worse. But that camp called the Teen Institute at the Garden State, now referred to as the Lindsay Meyer Teen Institute, changed my life forever. Hard to admit this to mom. Number one reason changed my life, the friends that are still with me 30 years later that I know from the camp. But the second reason, a technique that I learned at the camp for dealing with my stress, my anxiety. I'm going to share it with you right now, but I need you to do me a favor and sit up nice and straight in your seats. Put your hands in your lap and close your eyes. And during this brief exercise, I would like you to try and think about nothing. Very hard to do this because your brain is constantly active, producing thoughts and feelings. If you get distracted by something, I'm going to give you a word. Now, this word is a nonsense word. It doesn't mean anything. The word is siem. Again, siem. And I don't want you to say it out loud. Just say it to yourself, and only if you have to settle your mind. And I'd like you to do this until I ask you to stop. Okay, we're going to start with a chime and then end with the sound of my voice. Okay, open your eyes for me, please. Thank you for doing that. This is the one thing I actually enjoy doing remotely better than live. Because if I was in front of your whole high school, like, you wait till someone laughs or burps or whatever it is. Like one time I was in front of 3,000 people and someone opened a can of soda in the middle of it. It was total silence. And then, let me ask a question to you all. Who had a hard time with that? Thoughts kept racing, couldn't shut them off. Anybody have a tough time with it? No one. You know what I'm going to ask you to do now, though? I forgot to do this. I'm going to ask you to stand up for me for a second. And the reason I'm going to have you stand up is because meditation comes before action. I don't want you to pair it in your head. You sit and rest your brain, and then boom, you act. You don't do this necessarily at bed before you go to sleep. Not that you couldn't, but it's really meant for either the morning or the afternoon to prepare you for the big rush. So thank you, Jacob, for standing up. So everybody could stand up for a second and then just answer that question. So nobody had a hard time. I assume you all had an easy time of it. Raise your hand if you had an easy time. Your thoughts, stopped, just kind of settled down. Did you try the word? The word help you, Lily? What was it like for you?
It was like difficult in the beginning, but once you gave us the word, it was like a lot easier.
Oh, okay, nice. What were your thoughts? Let me go to Josephine. Initially, what were you thinking about?
Literally nothing.
Good. It's a good thing. Like some people are like thinking about their to-do list, their schoolwork. If I get paid for this, just sitting in silence, this guy do this for a living? Well, ultimately, no one's born being good at meditating. And usually I get half the hand say, that was hard for me. I couldn't shut off the thoughts. And that's totally normal. It took me 10 days for my brain to realize, oh, this is about resting. And then my mind went to this calm place. See, the mind is a lot like the ocean. Top layer of the ocean, very active with waves. But then there's this like deeper level that you can access in your mind, but you got to practice. So for the first 2 weeks when I was doing it, it felt like torture. And then all of a sudden my mind's like, oh, I get it. This is about resting. And I did, and I felt the benefits of it. So you can have a seat. Thank you so much for standing up and doing that. Much appreciated. Meditation, honestly, has saved my life. When I had COVID, I had a, moderate case, a few days that were really scary and not fun at all. And every time I found myself getting overwhelmed with anxiety, I'd catch it and calm it down. Because when you have a respiratory pneumonia going around and I had some trouble breathing for a few days, you got to regulate your breathing. But in the real world, there's been so many moments where meditating has helped me. But I think probably the best story I could give you on it to encapsulate why it's so good is I was gardening with my son years ago and I asked him to throw out some plants at the curb. And a minute later, I see him running at me, screaming like I just saw Slender Man, like, ah! I'm like, what happened? My son's like, my eyes are burning. And I realized, oh no, I gave him jalapeno pepper plants to throw out. He must have cracked one of the little jalapenos, rubbed it in his eyes. Now he's freaking out. Now, what do you do if you eat something that's too hot? Panel? What do you do? Go ahead, Jacob. You can unmute yourself. Just shout it out.
Chew on ice cubes.
You suffer. That's what you do, Jacob. You suffer. Now, ice cubes help. Milk helps. My mind went to milk, right? So I immediately pick up my son, bring him in the kitchen, tilt his head over the sink, and pour milk all over his face. And he's looking at me like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? I'm like, it's going to be okay. And 30 seconds later, he blinked his eyes. Oh my God, I'm better. What happened? And I turned to the scientist like, well, the capsaicin in the peppers is binding to the receptors in your eyes. Like, what? I'm like, the milk, it neutralized the pain. It took away the pain. That is exactly what meditation does for me. If I wake up in a crummy mood because I didn't sleep well, I know in my back pocket, I've got the meditation later in the day. 20 minutes, once a day, from 4 to 4:20. Yes, I get the irony of that. I don't need weed. I just sit and breathe. And the difference is profound. I mean, colors are brighter. My mood is up. I make better decisions. So many moments like that. But you know what? There's a lot of science behind this, and I want to share it with you that show us why meditation is so tremendous for us. The second point of the program is about expressing emotions in a healthy way. Meditation will help you do that because I find I can express myself much better when my mind is rested. When we're sleep deprived, our mood is all over the place. 3 things reliably happen to us. Number 1, when we're anxious. Number 2, we're angrier. Number 3, when we're confused. 3 things you do not need more of in this life, for sure. But look at the underslept and anxious teenage brain. Interesting study here. They had teenagers sleep less than 6 hours a night for a week. Raise your hand if you had less than 6 hours last night. Anybody on this call in that category? We got half the hands. Wait, 3/4 of the hands. Okay. So this could be you. You keep this going through the week. Looks like the brain's on fire here, doesn't it? What it is are people in a functional MRI machine measuring blood flow in the brain, and then they show them emotional pictures and words, and they see the difference between the kids that are sleep deprived and the ones who are well rested. And sure enough, the sleep deprived ones, their brain is reacting. A part of their brain called the amygdala, which helps produce emotions, looks like it's on fire. Now, real world scenario, you're up late, you're on your phone, maybe you're on social media somewhere and you see a comment about you, or you see pictures of a party you weren't invited to. Now, all of a sudden, your mind is going to react 10 times worse than it would have if you were rested. Okay. And that's why I really implore people in general not to be on those things late at night when they're tired, when they're most reactive, because let's face it, these algorithms are designed to engage you emotionally. That's what they do. They're good at it. And so if you want to avoid being triggered constantly late at night when you're tired and vulnerable, put the screen away. But meditation also helps your mind to be rested even late at night. That's what I find. I'm less likely to be triggered. Now, how does meditation work? You close your eyes, your mind wanders. It's totally normal. And then maybe a few seconds later, you notice your mind is wandering. So you say the word to yourself, things calm down, and then it happens all over again. But once you get proficient at meditating, your frontal lobe is really in control. That's what scientists have found out. And that frontal lobe is involved in what? Decision making, reasoning, and you're strengthening it. So you're going to be a better decision maker if you meditate. And that's what the science shows us. What else? A hormone called cortisol drops significantly by up to 30% if you practice transcendental meditation, which is basically what we just did. All right. And what's cortisol? It's a stress hormone that gets released when you are sleep deprived. So you're going to feel better. You feel less stressed out. It works. But meditation is not the only thing we can turn to manage our emotions. There's also music. Now, who here loves music? Lots of different music that I can turn to for a volunteer to help me with a demonstration of music and emotion. So Kaharu, you raise your hand first. So I think we're going to go to you first, and we'll use the rest of the group here to kind of help out if needed. All right. So let's go to the gallery view. Kaharu, I want to play some songs for you, okay? And you can unmute yourself. I'd like you to say the name of the song and the name of the artist. We'll start first with this song, which was pretty big about a year ago.
You were so excited for me to follow
Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo.
Yes. And what's the emotion expressed here?
I guess sadness.
Profound sadness. The first time I heard this song, I was like, it's a good song. And a minute later, I'm like, like I was driving through the suburbs alone. Like it's very vivid with the language. Maybe the most famous sad song though, internationally, is this one.
Someone Like You by Adele.
Good job. All right, you nailed it. And Adele was interviewed on TV about a year after she wrote this hit song. And they asked her, are you still upset over the breakup you wrote about here? And she's like, no, I'm over him. And I'm watching like, what? I'm not over him. How did you get over him, Cara? How do you think she got over him?
Through her music, I guess.
Yes, she wrote the song, right? She wrote about him. She made billions off this guy. I'd be over him too. But the point is the writing part. Writing therapy is so effective, especially for teenagers. Psychologists train on this all the time because there's no one between you and the page. You get those feelings out. It does feel better. Here's how it works if you're curious. It strips away the emotions from the telling of the event, right? Let's say you've gone through a trauma, like being dumped is painful. Now it's a trauma with a lowercase t, maybe not a big trauma, but a small one. And if you write about it and you find yourself being able to tell the story, but not be so reactive to the emotions, that's called getting over it, right? You look more mature. You look like you processed it. People who can't even go there, can't even talk about the event, they haven't really processed it deeply, and they're still really hurting. But you know what? There's not just sad music. There's also this.
Happy by Pharrell Williams.
Pharrell Williams is correct. What was the name of the song?
Happy.
Happy. Yeah. Good job. One time I had a college kid stand up. He's like, I know this. That's Happy by Will Ferrell. Oh, you better keep studying, buddy. You got the name right. It is Happy. What's the name,
Close.
of course, Skahara?
Happy.
Happy. And here's the big question. Do you like this song?
Yeah, it's a good song.
Good song. Now, some people hate it. They hate happy music in general, right? They want nothing to do with it. But amazingly, scientists are showing us, even if you don't like the song, if it's upbeat, it will lift your spirits because your brain can't resist it. So the point of this is, you're the first generation to be able to curate playlists on your phone of music centered around certain emotions that you want to achieve. And even though your brain knows what you're doing, it can't resist. You come home from a long, hard day, lower the lights, put on some calming music, suddenly you're going to feel more relaxed, right? Because it works. It's effective. Happy music works. Now, this next song, though, was huge when I was in high school.
Yeah.
You know it?
Yes.
Who sings it?
AC/DC.
Yes.
Thunder
Yeah.
Rock or something.
Watching high school students struggle with this because they're like, I know this. I think my mom, it's Leonard Skinard, and it's, but you did a good job, Carver. You knew it was
My
AC.
sister loves this song.
Well, what do you feel when the song comes on?
It's exciting. It's
Right.
gets you pumped up.
Yes, it does. Now, next time you have a big test or a performance and you're not feeling it, you put this on in the car ride over there, you're going to bust through the walls like, yeah, let's do this. They're going to be like, dude, this is debate club. Well, you just settle down. I don't care. Like, you're fired up, ready to go. Amazing that music can do that to us, right? It has the power to motivate. But, there is a special category of music. It's music that gives us the chills. Chills. And here's the song that does it for me. It's from a hit musical. Let's see if you know this one, Tyler. What do you think?
I don't know this one.
Most famous musical in the world. This is the line that gets me. So it's from Hamilton, and the Roots wrote this song. And what they say in there that moves me, sorry, I have an announcement. What moves me is when they say the line, even role models told us we're born to be felons. We're not getting to Harvard or Carnegie Mellon. And I think to myself, I didn't grow up like that. But can you imagine being a child, being told that, looking at the mountain in front of you, thinking, I have to get over that just to achieve something? And the Roots do. They become the house band in the Tonight Show. They write a hit song for the musical Hamilton. It makes my whole body tingle thinking, wow, they did overcome. That's so inspiring to me. It's so amazing. Harvard, do you have a song like that that makes your whole body tingle?
I feel like it's hard to name one song.
It is tough. Well, maybe it'll come to you. We played the last song for you. This is my favorite hip hop song of all time, written by a famous white rapper, which narrows it to 3. Sings this one.
Eminem.
Right. It's the name of the song.
Oh, give me a sec. Lose Yourself.
Lose Yourself. Yeah. What emotion does Eminem express in this song and every song he ever writes?
Just I would say honestly, it's so powerful. It just talks about just determination and strength.
So true. And I think there's a lot of anger there as well. Does anyone on this call know the song by heart? You love this song. You did this, Josephine? Could you rap a few lines of Lose Yourself for us?
I don't know, over Zoom it might be unsynced.
It might be awkward, right? Well, when I'm in an assembly, you might find this interesting. I'll ask that question. Who here knows this song by heart, right? And you kid shoots his hands up. And then I say, you want to rap a little bit for us? And the kid's like, oh, no way. And then I ask the audience, do you want to see him rap a little bit? And then they go nuts, like, yeah. And that kid, 9 times out of 10, male or female, doesn't matter, they get up and they come on stage, their hand on the mic, and they start rapping like they are Eminem. They go from not wanting to do it to becoming a little Eminem in that moment. And of course, that proves the slide I showed you a few minutes ago about risk-taking and peers influencing, right? And they get up and they execute a positive risk on stage in front of everybody. Now, Eminem is not a mentally healthy guy, you could argue, but he shows us in the movie 8 Mile how to channel a negative emotion like anger into something positive. For him, it's his performance, and it's inspiring. Music can do this. It can motivate us in a positive way if we use it. Now, there's a ton of science behind music. Of course, I'll just show you one slide that kind of demonstrates the music chills. I talked about this earlier. You see on the bottom, the brain lights up. And at the very least, you can use music to kind of distract yourself from a tough day, change your brain chemistry in a positive way like you see here. It really does work. What else? Well, it's a blank screen because I wish I had meditation and music. I did have music when I was in middle school, but I don't think I was using it as effectively as I could because I went through a tough time. My brother's struggling, got kicked out of college in his freshman year. He was still dealing with the partyholic lifestyle. My grandfather was diagnosed with cancer. He was the mayor of Point Pleasant Beach. Everyone loved him, and he's dying in pain, which is horrible and inexplicable. Someone you love who just cared about everyone is hurting at the end of their life. Like, it just doesn't compute, right? It doesn't make sense. And I was so angry about it myself. And then I walk into school one day and someone made fun of my eyebrows, my thick Sicilian eyebrows. You know, it's always going to happen, right? The haters come out when you're most vulnerable. And I went home that night and I was like, I'm going to shave my eyebrows a little bit. That's a mistake. Don't ever shave your own eyebrows. I walk into school the next day and this was me. It looked like I had 2 emotions on one face. I was half angry, half surprised. One of my eyebrows looks like it's growing up towards my hairline for some reason. I look more like alfalfa in this picture. But anyway, the point is that the day I walk in looking like this was picture day. Picture day. Can you believe that? I have this picture for the rest of my life, and so does everybody in my class, but I'm happy I do, because when the haters come out, don't mutilate your eyebrows. No, pursue your passions. Now, for me, what I noticed was after my grandfather passed away, I was all in with sports. He loves sports, okay? And when he died, I thought, if I become great, he'll be proud of me. In high school, I went to Montclair High School, a great sports school, a lot like Northern Valley, Demarest, and honestly, I was a captain of the wrestling team, captain of the baseball team, quarterback in the football team, played quarterback, which is probably hard for you to believe since I'm built more like a reader. This isn't some story about me turning pro. No, it is, though, about me being much better than I would have been without using those emotions. And I'm not the only one to do this. Just read the biography of your favorite athlete, actor, comedian, musician. It's the same story. They go through pain, loss, failure, but they find a way to take that and use it as fuel to do something brilliant. And you go to a high-performing school. I am certain that you've been told, oh, you have to be perfect to be successful in this life. You have to be perfect to get into Princeton or Harvard, and only then can you get the great job and make the great money. I'm sorry to say, I live in Princeton, New Jersey, and I know lots of very talented people, but many of them, most of them, have been through some stuff. They have struggled at times, but they found a way to use that energy to push them forward. My wife is also a psychologist, which first of all means we have very short arguments. She's like, Matt, what you said, you know how that makes me feel? I'm like, yes, I do. But she treats mostly Princeton University students. And you'd be shocked to learn that most of her students she treats are miserable at Princeton. Can you imagine that? How in the world is that possible? Many of them push themselves to the limit to get into Princeton, right? They neglected their mental health through 4 years of high school. Now they're at Princeton and realize, whoa, I got to do this again. They can't take it. They're overwhelmed. They need help. The point of this is there is disappointment in life. There is pain. There is loss. There is failure. The key is not to avoid it, but to take it and use it in a positive direction. Now, high school, yes, I look more like Mr. Rogers. Thank you. My slides are heckling me now. High school teaches us a lot about disappointment. For me, sports did. I was the backup quarterback on a football team ranked 6th in the country my junior year. We made it to the state championship and played in what the Star Ledger called the greatest high school game ever played. And we lost on a last-second field goal, and we were totally robbed. Randolph High School beat us. We're the #1 team in the state, and they beat us. They were #2. It was an incredible game. But as you look at this iconic photo from that game, you're going to notice a young man lying on the ground. His name is Deron Thornton. And you think, wow, his life is over. Look at that. He narrowly missed blocking that field goal to preserve our state championship. And it was his senior year. It was the last play he ever had on a football field. That is incredibly painful. By the way, the guy who kicked the field goal went on to become the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, number 13. Every time I watch an Eagles game, I'm like, screw you, Mike Rowe. You ruined my life. But did he? No, he didn't ruin my life. But Deron Thornton, his life was made as a result of this. He went on to become a coach at our high school and help the team win 5 state championships. Think about that. Are those two events related? Yes, they are. I asked him. Absolutely, they are. Maybe that's the key to this life. Is not avoiding the pain, but taking it and using it to make ourselves stronger and better. I love to surf, and surfing taught me the most beautiful waves. They come from the biggest storms. That's how life works. Got to harness the energy from those storms. My dad, in November, an otherwise healthy guy, fell in his garage and hit his head. Now, I studied traumatic brain injury. I worked at a hospital that treats traumatic brain injuries, and my father had one. And he never woke up. I had to fly down to South Carolina in the middle of the pandemic, try to get into the hospital. They wouldn't let me in. Just basically helping support my mom. My dad passed away 2 weeks later, and I'm telling you this story because what I noticed was something unusual. I'd been writing a book about disappointment for some time, over a year. The title of the book, Life is Disappointing and Other Inspiring Thoughts. And as I'm writing a book about disappointment, I experienced one of the greatest disappointments of my life, my father dying of a head injury. And I started writing for hours upon hours. I couldn't stop. It was like I was inspired. I went from struggling to write the book and finish it to motivated, and it was done in a few months. And I saw it in real time affect my life. It's a process that we all go through. That's the key. Now, many young people, of course, turn to chemicals to try to cope with their pain, their loss, and their failure. And I have love for you if this is you, but you need to know a few things. First of all, when you dose yourself with something like nicotine, you're going to feel relaxed. But then about a half an hour, maybe less later, the stress starts to build and your brain thinks, I'm having a tough day. You know what I need? Another hit on this puff bar or whatever it is. What's actually happening though, that you're withdrawing from nicotine. It's leaving your bloodstream and stressing you out. And your brain is seeking out relief for it. We know if you use every single day, you're much more likely to have a diagnosis of depression. So please reach out for help. You don't get a high off nicotine, but you get a serotonin boost. That's a neurotransmitter, mood neurotransmitter that makes you feel a little better. So your brain's going to notice when you stop and it's going to holler at you, hey, we want more of that. That's how you get caught in this loop of using every day. But if you're using a chemical every day, just talk to someone. You need help. There's a reason for this. Please seek help. Now, alcohol, it's another chemical people turn to reduce anxiety. It's called an anxiolytic. Again, it's effective early on when people start using, but of course, that effectiveness turns into destructiveness because it lowers blood flow in the frontal lobe of the brain, leading to some horrible decisions when people are drunk. I was on a show called World's Dumbest on True TV where they capture people that are drunk on video and the comedians make fun of them. Like that's hilarious until it's not, right? Until it becomes destructive and deadly. But the earlier you start with alcohol, the greater your risk of dependence upon it. Start at age 14, getting drunk, say once a month. You have a nearly 50% chance of being dependent. Think about that word. You want to be dependent on a chemical? I don't. So you owe it to your brain simply to wait until you're in your 20s. What age does the brain fully develop? Panel? Anybody want to shout it out? Surely you know this. What age is especially the frontal lobe, fully developed?
25.
Thank you. Yes. My wife says for men, it's 45. She might be right. It's actually 22 for females, 25 for males. So you owe it to your brain simply to wait, because guess what? It will alter your brain. But this is fascinating right here. This might blow your mind. There's something called the dopamine theory of addiction. All right. And it goes like this. People who have a genetic predisposition for addiction in their family, they have a brain that doesn't release as much dopamine as somebody who doesn't have that predisposition. So they want, all these scientists set out to study it over the course of about 10 years. And basically they gave people a stimulant chemical to 2 different groups, a regular control group, and then a group that either had alcohol problems. They were dependent on alcohol, dependent on cocaine, dependent on methamphetamines, dependent on heroin, dependent on cannabis. And what they found was fascinating. And you're looking at it right now, which is the people who were considered the healthy group, their brains reacted to the stimulant by releasing lots of dopamine. And they had this experience of like, whoa, that's really stimulating. The other folks didn't. They had a very little jump. And the dopamine theory is this: if you have one of those brains that doesn't have very reactive dopamine, let's say you go out to a party and you see people drinking or using a drug, you're not just going to use a little bit of the drug, you're going to use a lot. So you can have the desired effect. And the next party, you're going to use a lot again and again and again. And it sets you up on this road to be dependent. Now, that's a big issue for someone your age because your brain is still developing. And here's evidence that alcohol actually thins the frontal lobe of your cerebral cortex if you start using when you're a teenager and continue to in your 20s. This was a twin study that showed this. Fascinating stuff. I don't want to change my brain. I want to give myself a chance to live out to my full potential. So I wouldn't want to get involved in this. But of course, we didn't know this information when I was in high school. I just avoided it because my brother was getting in trouble. Now, the final chemical to mention is THC. And THC, I say that, not weed, because it can be found in so many different products now. And we know that it messes with your memory. I'm a memory expert, so I studied for my dissertation. We know that a part of your brain called the hippocampus gets significantly smaller when you're a teenager using lots of THC. Who cares? Well, you should, because the hippocampus is like the grand central station for memories. You shrink that, your memory capacity shrinks too, which means your academic performance gets worse. And maybe you have a photographic memory and you don't care. Like, I could lose a little bit of memory. Doesn't matter. That's my wife. She has a photographic memory. Okay. She remembers everything and it ruins my life all the time. Me, I have an average memory. I have to repeat stuff a lot. Raise your hand if that's you. You have an average memory, need lots of repetition to kind of retain. Jacob raised his hand. Anyone else? All right. Now, it turns out my brother, by the way, had a learning disability. He started taking lots of weed, THC. He failed out of his first college. Interestingly, though, he got the supports he needed for the disability. His grades got much better. Drug use went down. Things improved in his life. What else? The untold story on THC, mental health problems. As the concentration of THC gets above 10% in the population, you see an increase for emergency room visits, for psychosis, psychotic episodes, people seeing things and hearing things that are not there. Now, is it medicine, Matt? Yeah, for some patient populations it is. And I'm so thankful they have an extra tool in the shed to help them with their pain or nausea, whatever these patients need. But for the average high school student listening to this call, you're much more likely to have a diagnosis of depression, thoughts of suicide, even attempts of suicide if you're actively using every day. And you know what? This whole topic bums me out when I talk too much about it, because I'm all about natural highs, activities we can do that change our brain chemistry in a positive way. Here are a few that I love: biking, surfing, eating real food that comes from the ground, performing, laughing, all of it. Hikes in the woods, sunsets, team sports, wonderful. But you know what? Humans are not the only ones that love a good natural high. Here's the animal kingdom. Last winter, a panda bear sledding down on its back. Look at this. If you could do this every day, I'm sure you would. This next one is my favorite. Looks like a child rolling around, right? Love it. Now, panelists, share with me, what's a natural high that you enjoy? Something that you know reliably changes how you feel. Is it going for a run? Is it going for a hike? Performing music? What is it? Who wants to share one? Okay, Jacob.
Music's my outlet. I play a lot of instruments. I sing. I do whatever. It makes me feel really good.
Nice. So can you take us to a moment where you know music helped you?
Last year, my sister actually got COVID, and I was just like really nervous. I'm a type 1 diabetic, so my health is at stake. So I was like really nervous. So I stayed in my room and I had my guitar and I just went crazy with it. So
Thank you for sharing that, Jacob. I'm glad you're doing all right. I can see why that would be pretty scary. And when you're in that confined situation, sometimes music's the only thing you got to kind of take your mind out of it. Anyone else want to share natural high that you have, Rebecca?
Yeah, like just like Jacob, I also love playing instruments. I'm a violinist, so like what I do is like whenever I need to like release stress or anything like that, I always like I don't take it out on my violin, but like I release the stress through music, and not only do I get practice in, but I also, benefit from it, and I think it's great.
Fantastic. Anyone else? I'd love for you all to chime in if you'd like. Natural highs. Lily?
Like whenever I'm like with my friends, like they're like uplifting and like I just like being around them.
Nice. Friends, social support. Powerful. Josephine, Haru?
I'm a fencer. Takes some stress off after school. It's definitely makes me happy after I'm done with the class.
Yeah, fencing is intense, right? It's just you versus that other person.
I mean, I just guess like any really physical activity.
Haru?
I'm a dancer, so I don't know. I always feel better after I get some exercise in.
Fantastic. Exercise, let's take running, for example, probably the most well-studied natural high, releases a chemical called anandamide. It's an endorphin. And afterwards, your mood is better, your memory improves over time, which is the exact opposite to the chemical anandamide looks like, which is THC. Do THC enough, mood and memory gets worse. I told that to a high school kid once. He's like, sweet, I'll do both then. I'll run, I'll smoke weed, it'll cancel. You can't convince everybody. You can't. But running or exercising, definitely the better high. I'll show you some science in a second, but I want to share with all of you, you're going to get a gift from me, which is a copy of one of my books. You get to choose these wonderful panelists here. When we're done, I'll figure out what your order is, and I'll send out a copy of my book for helping us through this presentation. But let me show you some slides. Hopefully that's a natural high for you to learn. You'll be getting a wonderful book. But let's look at the science of natural highs. Laughing. And yes, I wrote the book on natural highs, a better high, and I talked a lot about laughing. Look at the laughing brain. What street drug that I haven't really, I guess I mentioned it briefly, but what street drug makes the brain light up like this? Anybody want to take a guess? No guesses? One time a kid shouted out in assembly, he's like, cocaine. I'm like, yes, but why are you so enthusiastic? It is cocaine. Think about that. Laughing makes the brain light up like cocaine, but yet laughing, such a better natural high, such a better high. Like, honestly, you're never going to watch a hilarious comedian then roll over in your bed and be like, oh, that comedian was so funny. I'm hungover. Why not though? Why not? Because the brain has had a balance natural highs. It's called homeostasis. Always trying to stay in balance. That's what the brain does. But when you take a chemical to get a high, it forces your brain into the high state. And then of course, it can cause some damage to receptor sites. And afterward, you feel crummy. If people use enough, they have to use just to feel normal again. Natural highs don't work that way. Here's an odd natural high. We don't think of it all the time this way, but meaningful work or a sense of purpose in your life. It actually improves your memory when you get up every day with a purpose, something you want to achieve. So cognitively, we're helped by this sort of abstract idea that we're on this earth for a reason. We're trying to do something, whether it's helping other people, improving the planet, whatever it is. You have a sense of purpose in your life. It's better for us cognitively, and I imagine your mood as well. We know exercise improves your memory. Here's evidence of it. It actually increases the hippocampus. It reduces stress scores significantly, increases happiness scores. Nature calms the mind by reducing blood flow in a part of your brain associated with stress, partly because there are bird sounds and water sounds and wind, and we evolved to be outside. So we really do enjoy it. Blue space, green space, so wonderful. Nature reduces cortisol levels as much as meditating does. So here's some of my recommendations. Move in the morning for your mood. I do it more for mental health these days and even physical health. Afternoon, that's when I meditate to be more resilient, especially in the evening, because life can get real busy in the evening with 2 kids, or in your case, studying, being home with family, be stressful. I like to cook and eat a nutritious meal and be social at night. Even over Zoom, it's still something positive and fun. And here are my natural highs, my 2 kids. That's Sydney on the right, and then my son on the left, who, by the way, when he was born, my wife said, I want to give you a gift, Matt. I want to name our son after your grandfather who died of cancer. Oh, I was blown away. Take a knee. I was like, we're going to name our son after my grandfather. So we called him Grandpa. It is unique though, right? This is Grandpa, everybody. No, his real name is Roy. And he did not come out looking this cute. You get about 3 months of this. When he was born, the doctor said, he looks just like you, Matt. I'm like, no, he looks like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. My son was like, yeah, Dad, this is what you look like. You're Nicolas Cage. There's something disgusting on your chin. And the final thing I want to mention before I sign off is don't be afraid to take a stand, especially now when you're in high school. When I was 19 years old in college at Bucknell University, I started a student group that promotes natural highs on our campus. I was a teenager, but the group became so successful, the university gave us a house. The name of the group, named after my favorite cartoon, Calvin and Hobbes. When did I get the idea for this group? When I was at that leadership conference as a 10th grader. Well, the group still exists. 27 years later, wow, our birthday is next week, actually. And we live in this house now. If you go to Bucknell University, visit Calvin and Hobbes' house, check it out. We're the oldest club on campus. We spread the word to other campuses around the country. I would love for a student on this call or anyone watching this to go out and start a natural high club. And you can go to the naturalhigh.org website, and there's a whole bunch of forms, a stepwise thing to help you form a club if you want. But there's also celebrities on there talking about their natural highs and some curriculum for the classroom. And it's all free. And I help these folks because they're doing great work. And the idea of natural highs has legs. And it's an important idea to spread throughout the world. And here I am sharing with you some of the storms of my life, but also the beautiful waves. And I hope you all here will take the storms in your lives and produce some beautiful waves with them. And I really want to thank you all for being on the call and being a part of this. So we have Josephine, Kahara, Jacob, and Rebecca who joined us on this. Any questions? Lily too. Sorry, Lily, you're in the bottom corner. Any comments, questions you'd like to share to wrap up? If not, I'm going to play a song, kind of a quick story to play us out, but I want to make sure you have any questions or things to say. No? Good? So in Calvin and Hobbes' house. Yes, go ahead, Jacob. We got.
Does your family get mad at you when you use them as like bit material in your stand-up?
That's a great question. You know what I found? They don't get annoyed at me when I do jokes on stage, especially if they get laughs, but they do get bothered when I write about them in my books, because somehow like seeing it in print like annoys them so much more. My brother, for example, he said, I'm oddly proud that I'm like inspiring your career. But my mother definitely doesn't like me talking about what my brother went through. That I find interesting. There are some jokes where my wife's like, no, you're not doing that. And you'll never hear those jokes because I like to stay married. My kids, like, they like them, but I think they're getting to the age, my son's 11, almost 12, and he's starting to get a little embarrassed. So I have to watch myself too and what I can get away with. That's a very insightful question. Now, any others? Okay, so Calvin and Hobbes' house, probably my favorite natural high with that group. Every semester we had a dance party, right? And at the end of every dance party, we played the same song. It's an old song by REM called It's the End of the World as We Know It. This. And we'd start to jump around and do this mosh pit type dance to this song. And it ended every dance. Even if the dance sucked and was boring, we knew this song was going to end it. And we'd jump around screaming the lyrics. It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. And there's something cathartic about that. Because you know what? The last 80 weeks have felt like it's the end of the world. But shouting it out and saying, I feel fine is empowering, right? And we would do that until the song was over and we collapsed on the floor laughing and sweating. It felt great. Well, fast forward to 2 years ago, I'm at an outdoor concert with my family. And the last song of the night comes on. You guessed it, this one. And I get up and start dancing alone in front of a whole group of people. And my wife is like, what are you doing? We live here. I'm like, I got to represent Calvin and Hobbes, right? And nobody was dancing with me. You know how uncomfortable it is to jump alone in front of people? Yes, you do. You're watching me do it. Well, after a minute of this, children see what I'm doing, start coming up and jumping with me. It was incredible. And then they start asking me to pick them up. They're like, uppy, uppy, uppy. So I did. I picked them up. And their parents are like, why are you touching my kids? Like, I don't know. They asked me to. Well, By the time that dance ended, parents were rushing up to me saying things like, "You're an inspiration. That was amazing." I'm like, "What? I jumped for 4 minutes. What?" Yes. And it changed how I felt for hours, guys. Hours. And the next slide, I think it might come up. No, it was a video. I was going to show you guys a video of it, but it didn't come up. Of me. Someone took video of me dancing at that outdoor concert. And it blew my mind how good I felt, not just for minutes, but for hours afterwards. So you don't need some big complicated natural high to feel better. As Jacob learned, you could be in your room playing some music. You get up and start moving around, dancing like Ahara loves to do, and it will change how you feel. Thank you so much. Hopefully this program changed how you feel a little bit. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. Take
Thank you.
care.
Thank you.